just like music.
Right. And Greg, Nicole mentioned heard Nicole Knowles piece was more black than blue. Right. And that kind of leads us into letting everybody know that October the 6th, we're going to be doing a series of Black in America. And the part one series is going to be Law and Justice series. It's going to be taking place at the exclusive Cuts Barbershop from 3:30 to 5 p.m. And that's 4353 Edgewater Drive. And this is being done in partnership. And Greg, I call him Coach B. What do you call him?
Baruti.
Baruti,
yeah.
And this is in partnership with the Conversation Before the Conversation, the Apopka Voice Media, and also a friend to the show, man. And I got to tell you, an effective individual who understands the dynamics between law enforcement and communities. From the Bethune-Cookman University Center for Social Justice, we're going to have Dr. Randy Nelson that's going to be joining us.
Very nice.
As well, man. So once again, we're going to be doing a series called Black in America. And Greg, I think it's important for us to let folk know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the title fool you.
Yeah.
This is welcoming everybody. So we want to make sure that we extend this out to folk again, and this is not what some might call a black thing. This is inclusive of everybody. Once again, Black in America, Part 1, and this series is going to be on law and justice. We're going to move forward to talk about economic development and other series and affordable housing, but we don't want to spread this thing too thin.
No, absolutely not. Now, you told them October 6, 2019. You told them the place. What's the time, Brother Love?
I said the time. You wasn't listening. 3:30.
How many times you got to say it?
Okay, that's right. This radio. We got to keep saying it. But we're going to start promptly at 3:30. And once again, I want to thank Coach with the Conversation Before the Conversation. Want to also thank the Apopka Voice Media. And we are going to have the expertise of Bethune-Cookman University Center for Social Justice, Dr. Randy Nelson, engaged. And Greg, I think this is a good leadoff in kind of opening up one of the conversations that we talked about earlier.
But listen, one of the things that was mentioned, and one of the things we're going to be talking about, relationships, obviously, with law enforcement, but also mentioned in the Black and Blue, Nicole Knowles.
Yeah.
Just this past 6 hours,
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back, an issue came up here in Orlando, and I want y'all to get this. This is national news right now. National news, and it kind of goes to the.
It's not the kind of national news we want.
Yeah, but it goes to the insensitivity of what takes place in schools and things of that nature. But get this: 2 6-year-olds were arrested and booked here in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, and
Six. What? Now I didn't say 16.
A 6 and an 8-year-old.
No. They were both. They came back and they corrected it. It was 2 6-year-olds.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Greg. We know this happened.
Yeah.
This should have never happened. But what I want to do at least, and that's the beauty of agreeing to go in different directions so that everybody get a little taste of this. And point blank, this should have never happened. But one of the things, man, I think we need to go ahead and also identify is we've seen time after time things like this take place.
Right.
And we're waiting for the leadership to come out and say something.
Right.
And Chief Orlando Rolon, the chief of police with Orlando, he released a statement, Greg, and I'm waiting to hear more from him. But one of the things that he mentioned is this officer didn't follow policy. And I mean, didn't follow policy whatsoever. But, Greg, the thing that we didn't have to wait to hear is the chief. He didn't put a spokesperson out there. He didn't put his second in command. He came out and said this should have never happened, and you just made me abreast that this guy, I thought he was suspended.
No. They came out just as I was pulling into the parking lot, and they said that he was fired. And the policy that you're referring to is that in Orlando, in order to book someone who is younger than 12 years old, they have to get a supervisor's approval to do so. And this police officer who was working in a school, so let's set the stage here. He was working in a school, a private school, a charter school, and these two kids apparently acted out. And he came in, one of them in particular, that the story has been mentioned more. I think that's because the grandmother has been a little more vocal. Zip tied her hands shut because she had kicked the teacher and in the midst of having a tantrum, so the police officer came in and arrested her, fingerprinted, booked. I mean, like for real, booked.
Greg, this goes back to, and I don't know about you, but based on me knowing you, man, I don't know how many years now.
Yeah.
I think you would have been in the same category. But let's talk about criminalizing bad behavior. If criminalizing bad behavior back in my day,
Yeah.
I would have been at the jack every day.
Now let me say this now, because when I came up, you don't put your feet on nobody. And this little girl kicked somebody. Now, so I don't want to get too far past. Now, she should not have been arrested.
My mama named Fannie Mae. You don't do a lot of things.
Yeah, but I'll tell you like this: if that was my child and this happened to her, yeah, I'll be ticked off, and yeah, I'll be wrecking shop. But that tells that those Johnny
So you read the
Porter
report.
high
So it was some kicking and things.
Yeah, the
going
little
on?
girl kicked the teacher in the midst of having a tantrum, and I tell you what, I would have been tanning some high when I got to the house. Hey, police officer, you know, don't do that. Boom, 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 boom. Get to the house, close the doors. I'm tanning some tail
But
up.
Greg, this goes back to the day. See, I don't want to show how
I'm old school.
See, I want to show how
Yeah, I'm old school.
But this goes back to the day when my neighbors that I grew up with.
Oh, yeah.
When they caught you doing something wrong, they whooped you, and then you thought you got some sympathy when you got home.
No,
Greg, you're an attorney. Could I, call my mom up and say you put me in double jeopardy when the neighbor already whooped me, and then I come home and you do it again?
Yeah, you got to wear that. You got to wear that.
But Greg, with the 6 and 8 year old, and
6 and 6. You keep
6 and
saying,
6.
listen, 6 and 6, which makes it even worse.
Well, see, I'm going to the detail that I saw released from the chief of police. If somebody knows,
Stop reading from him, man.
stop reading from him. But what I will read from him, Greg, is this. In detail.
Right.
Yeah, Greg, that should have never took place.
Right.
But we didn't have a police chief, man, and this is the thing that I'm impressed about. I sat through Bethune-Cookman's training over at BCU, and this was several months ago. And Dr. Randy Nelson, he facilitates a lot of these law enforcement engagement trainings.
Right.
One of the officers, or one of the deputies in the class, as we were going through this training, he said, hey, look, from a law enforcement perspective, when we make mistakes, how do we get the trust back from that community?
Right.
And what I'm seeing with the chief, and I'm not getting in the cheerleading squad,
Yeah.
but what I see from the chief, there was not a spokesperson that came out. There was not a second in command. He said, hey, he is the grandfather of several kids, and this is not what should have happened.
Well, and listen, to that point, because the Ninth Circuit state attorney came out and was very critical of the criminal justice system, and maybe rightfully so, maybe so. But to impugn the entire system because
Correct.
of a single individual, where swift action was taken. When this was found out, listen, I think it was Friday when I heard about this. When I first heard that that officer had been suspended or whatever. This is something that it didn't just happen today. And how swift the response was and what took place, that actually negates and goes against what the Ninth Circuit state attorney was saying, because that person made it seem as if this happened and through some public outcry that we never heard
You're
anything
right.
about.
You got a point there,
that
yeah.
all of it, I mean, but this was taken care of in-house swiftly, and public apologies have been made. The person who committed this ridiculously crazy act was immediately disciplined with suspension, and then today we found out he was
Let
terminated.
me ask you this, because this sounds like a teachable moment here.
Yeah.
And it's two pronged. One prong, and I don't know all the details, Greg, of what the two children did.
Right.
But it sounds like, from where we come from, you go home and your parents, you in for it.
Yeah.
The other prong is the chief, and it was smart. And I'm not even going to say strategic. This, to me, shows leadership, but he didn't wait for the public outcry.
That's right.
He didn't wait for it. Greg, normally we're sitting back waiting for investigations to take place that take 9 months when we know what happened.
Well, listen, I mean, let's compare that to what happened in Pinellas County with the stand your ground issue.
You're right.
I mean, and I know it's two totally different issues, but this goes to how do you handle and get in front of bad situations so that the public can trust you. And I believe that Chief Rolon, Orlando Rolon, has put himself in the position to where the public is going to trust him to do the right thing.
Well, it answers the questions that took place during Dr. Nelson's training when the one deputy asked the question, when we make mistakes, and this was, I was impressed to hear this, acknowledging the fact that, we make mistakes sometimes.
Right.
But when they make mistakes, how do they regain the trust of the community?
Right.
And this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Don't wait for a public outcry. do, and people are entitled, those officers are entitled to due process.
That's right.
But man, this is the kind of stuff, Greg, on October the 6th. And for those of you, this is after church on a Sunday. This is at 3:30. Come out. We need to hear from you. We need to hear what's taking place. But another part of this, Greg, and we need to let people know, this is not a beat-up session that we're having. We're going to be listening to the engagement, but we're looking for solutions.
Right. Now, and we're going to be very upfront and real about the conversation. But you can do those things without being negative about it. I mean, because the only way that you can find solutions is to come together and be willing to make some compromise about what you believe, what the other person believes. And as we always say, listen, iron sharpens iron.
You're right.
And by that, what we mean is that sometimes there is some friction now, and there may be some sparks, but at the end of the day, we're going to make each other stronger in this regard.
That we got to continuously have, and we got to let folk know, and this is inclusive of everybody. Just because the title is saying Black in America, Part 1 Law and Justice Series, we want to see, and to extend a special invitation to Chief Orlando Rolon of the Orlando Police Department, man. These are the folk, man, that are showing leadership, and we're not waiting 9 months after the investigation to see leadership. These are folk that are stepping forward. But Black in America Series Part 1, Law and Justice, October the 6th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. at the exclusive Cuts Barbershop off of Edgewater Drive. For more information,
Orlando, Florida.
You can email us at info@letstalknation.net.
Just like music.